This morning I'm going to provide a little bit of background and some comments, followed by Merle Bowen, Dede Fairchild-Ruggles, and Teresa Barnes. On behalf of the Friends of James Kilgore, I want to thank you all for coming out this morning to show your support. We also appreciate the many thousands of people on our campus and beyond who have signed petitions, written email messages to the Board of Trustees, and taken actions that seek to reinstate James Kilgore to the university. This has been a long story, hasn't it?
Yes!
But let me start in the middle by taking us back to last April. It was then that Provost Dede told Dr. Kilgore that he would no longer be employed by the university. But on May 13th, largely in response to the public outcry that you generated, Provost Dede established a committee tasked with reviewing the hiring processes that were used by the Urbana campus and relevant campus units for the prior and current employment of James Kilgore. The Provost also charged the committee with providing, quote, findings regarding how employment decisions were made and conclusions regarding the adequacy of hiring policies and processes that were followed. In addition, the Provost asked the committee to look closely at the policies for evaluating criminal background of future employment. Professor Dede Ruggles will speak about that part of the committee's work. I'll focus on the committee's review of Dr. Kilgore's employment. The committee was chaired by Professor Matthew Reeler of the Department of Animal Sciences. It's clear from reading the report that the committee systematically and energetically addressed each of the tasks identified by the Provost. Indeed, they interviewed everyone who was in any way directly involved with employing Dr. Kilgore over the last 4 years. Their findings are no surprise. They concluded that, quote, the practices used to hire Dr. Kilgore complied with and followed the accepted policies and practices in place at the time of his various employments. They further noted that, quote, all indications are that Mr. Kilgore voluntarily disclosed his prior use of an alias and was open about his criminal convictions. Based on these findings, the committee made the following conclusions and recommendations. Quote, the record demonstrates that Mr. Kilgore has been a successful employee and has contributed to the scholarly and educational missions of the campus in the academic hourly and visiting specialized faculty positions he has held over the past 4 years. The committee concludes the recommendations that, quote, Mr. Kilgore be allowed to continue to be employed by the university in accordance with the policies that apply to all individuals seeking employment. Specifically, we would endorse the professional judgments of units wishing to hire Mr. Kilgore during the fall 2014 semester, pursuant to the hiring practices currently in place. Let me put this in plain English. The committee found no errors were made, no corners were cut, no policies were violated in hiring Dr. Kilgore over these past 4 years. In light of these findings, the committee has called upon the university to reinstate Dr. Kilgore. It's our understanding that the Board of Trustees is planning to consider a resolution regarding Dr. Kilgore's employment at their meeting this Thursday, November 13th. Our understanding is that the board will consider the findings and recommendations of the review committee. We call on the Board of Trustees to do the following 4 things. First, The board should follow the recommendations of the committee and reinstate Dr. Kilgore immediately. This debacle has carried on for far too long. Dr. Kilgore has been denied any income from the university employment since May 15th, and our university has been denied the skills and experience of an important scholar and instructor who has twice appeared on the excellent teachers list. Second, the board should issue a public statement commending the review committee for its work and its findings. Third, the board should refrain from further interference in the hiring decisions made by executive officers and deans. Fourth, the board should recognize the authority of campus administration to carry out their designated duties and responsibilities, and remember that the statutes of the university indicate that the Board of Trustees should set policies and secure funding for the university. They should not engage in micromanaging our campus or any of the 3 campuses. As you all know, in recent months, our campus has experienced a crisis of confidence in our Board of Trustees and a series of threats to our academic freedom. Indeed, the unfortunate decision to unhire Professor Stephen Salita has caused many in our ranks to question the board's commitment to academic freedom and transparent decision-making. In the case of Dr. Kilgore and the report commissioned by the provost, the Board of Trustees has an opportunity to return to the fundamental principles of how a world-class university should operate, or continue down the path which will further divide and demoralize faculty and students and undermine our ability to carry out our mission. It's time for the Board of Trustees to reread the university statutes and return to their traditional role of setting policies and securing funds for our 3 campuses. They need to get out of the business of micromanaging. We call on them to act on these recommendations of the faculty committee and to immediately reinstate Dr. Kilgore. Completes my comments. I'd be happy to take questions after my colleagues have spoken. Now let me call forward Professor Merle Bowen, Director of the Center of African Studies.
My name is Merle Bowen, and I am the Director of the Center for African Studies, a position I have held for the last 6 years. In 2011, I hired Dr. James Kilgore as an academic hourly. During the 3 years he was employed at the center, he performed his work effectively and fulfilled his duties far beyond expectation. In April 2014, despite his sterling job performance, the then interim dean of liberal arts and sciences informed me that the administration had decided that I and other heads of units could not renew Dr. Kilgore's contract without an explanation as to why, how, and by whom this decision had been made. A month later, Provost Adishida appointed a committee to review the hiring processes that were used by campus units for the appointments of Dr. Kilgore. The committee, chaired by Professor Matthew Wheeler of the Department of Animal Sciences, worked diligently over the summer and submitted their report to the provost in August 2014. The Friends of James Kilgore support the rigor and comprehensive nature of the committee's work and their report. We support their conclusions with respect to Dr. Kilgore's future employment at the University of Illinois. As the committee report has shown, the Center for African Studies, of which I am the director, as well as the other units which employ Dr. Kilgore, followed, quote, the accepted policies and practices in place at the times of his various appointments, end of quote. Furthermore, as I told the committee during my interview, Dr. Kilgore fully disclosed his background to me at the time we proposed hiring him. His background was also fully disclosed to the Dean of LAS at the time. We also concur with the findings that Dr. Kilgore has been, quote, a successful employee and has contributed to the scholarly and educational missions of the campus, end of quote. At the Center for African Studies, he wrote numerous successful grant proposals and played a leading role in developing our U.S. Department of Education Title VI application that was funded in the amount of $2.2 million, putting us on a sound financial footing for the next 4 years. In addition, he played a key role in conceptualizing and delivering our outreach and educational programs, as well as serving as the main organizer for our highly visible international conferences on campus. We hope that the Board of Trustees will follow the findings and recommendations of the committee, which the Provost concurs with, and that Dr. James Kilgore, quote, be allowed to continue to be employed by the university, end of quote. He is a tremendous asset to our programs, and we at the Center for African Studies are eager to have him back in our ranks. Thank you.
And I will try and talk over it very loud. I'd like to thank everybody for coming out today. My name is Dede Fairchild-Ruggles. I've been a longtime supporter of James Kilgore. He is my colleague in Temple Buell Hall and in many things as our many reviews. I'd like to thank you for your continued support over the past few months as we have faced some important struggles to defend academic freedom and effective, responsible governance of our university. And I believe that the James Kilgore case is a very important test of those policies and procedures. We commend the committee for their work and support both their findings and recommendations in regard to the specific case of James Kilgore. However, the committee has also made recommendations concerning the assessment of criminal background in the hiring process and suggested ways to change these methods in the future. And that part of the report is actually deeply problematic for reasons that go far beyond this case and far beyond this campus. It is a national issue in which we are meddling with very little expertise. Specifically, the committee stated, and I'm going to read a long quote because many of you have not yet read the report. They stated that, and I quote, "It is time to end the practice that the vast majority of new hire appointments are made with no inquiry into criminal history and no evaluation of potential risk that may be posed by individuals with criminal convictions. Accordingly, the committee recommends that the campus develop a criminal background check policy that requires all new hires, excluding student appointments and a few categories of temporary appointments, to be subjected to a criminal history review. Where convictions are found, the committee recommends that the policy require an individualized assessment of whether the individual should be prohibited from holding the employment position at issue." That ends the quote. Well, the committee has made an important start in looking into these questions, but of course they are not a body with expertise in this issue. They're professors. Moreover, while the committee invited a number of people to give testimony about their experience in hiring James Kilgore in particular, they seem not to have called upon expertise regarding major changes in hiring policy. The committee's comments regarding campus security raises concerns. First, the implication is that virtually everyone with a criminal record poses a potential threat to the university, and this is patently absurd. Figures from the National Employment Law Project indicate that some 1 in 4 adults in the U.S. has a criminal record. I'm shocked to even say that out loud. And the question is, do all of these pose a threat to U of I? No. Second, the rights of those with felony convictions should be considered because criminal background checks are a human rights issue as well as a security issue.
Yes.
And here, I want to remind us that we are talking about people who have already been put through a process of law, been judged, served their time. Who are we to retry them?
Yes.
Why?
Yes.
With policies such as this, we are effectively stating that every time anyone with any felony conviction goes up for a job, they have to be retried. They have to hire a lawyer to plead their case, and this is absurd. We are bypassing, we are undermining, we are disrespecting the courts themselves and the expertise that lies therein.
Well said.
The cities of Urbana and Champaign have already recognized this and passed human rights ordinances that specifically forbid discrimination on the basis of a person's criminal background. After all, these are not life sentences. Once a person has served his or her time, the sentence should end. Third, adding criminal background checks to the application process may deter faculty from seeking employment at our university. This is doubly true for the increasing number of people with felony convictions who have turned their lives around, obtained PhDs, and now offer their skills and experience to the job market. When 20, 30 years have passed and someone did something at the age of 17 or 18 and now they're a mature adult, we should recognize that. We are concerned that that's just a human statement from me as a human being. We are concerned that there is a certain bandwagon dynamic operating here. The committee notes that a number of other Big Ten universities have adopted fairly strict criminal background check policies. But this should not compel U of I to follow suit. Are we to be followers or are we to be leaders? We are particularly disturbed that some university spokespersons, without naming names, it is the Associate Vice President for Human Resources, the drive for criminal background checks with the Jerry Sandusky affair at Penn State. But if you know anything about that case, you know that no criminal background check would have yielded any meaningful impact on the actions of Mr. Sandusky or his employment.
Yes.
So it's a complete distraction from the actual issue.
Yes.
The national trend is moving away from tightening up on the hiring of people with felony convictions. Some 12 states and over 70 cities and counties, including Urbana and Chicago, have passed ban-the-box resolutions, outlawing asking questions about criminal background on job application forms, and laying out careful procedures for protecting the rights of people with felony convictions in the hiring process. In July of this year, Illinois became the 5th state to enact a ban-the-box initiative for all public and private sector jobs in the state. We recommend that the University of Illinois embrace this trend in keeping with the policy of inclusive Illinois. In conclusion, we agree that the committee's recommendations that more investigation and broader participation is needed before the University of Illinois adopts any policy on criminal background checks. We further recommend a thorough and public process of discussion and debate, a process that includes participation by legal and human rights experts, by faculty and staff representatives, and by organizations that represent the rights of formerly incarcerated people and those with felony convictions. Such a process should thoroughly consider the issue not only from the standpoint of public safety, but also in terms of the rights and conditions of employment for faculty in general. Thank you. And now I would like my colleague Terry Barnes to say some words.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. So my name is Terry Barnes. I'm Associate Professor of History and Gender and Women's Studies, and as James Kilgore's partner, I am also a longtime supporter of James. And I have to get my teacher voice on here. When my family and I returned to the U.S. from South Africa, we hoped for a quiet and uneventful reintegration. We did enjoy that for 5 years, and then once again, maybe not all hell, but some degree of hell broke loose. As has been the case throughout, many wonderful, principled people have rallied to our support. They've given their time, their energy, and their ideas to helping us find ways to cope with the attention. They've earned our thanks a zillion times over. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you all. Really, from my heart, thank you all so much. Now, we are nice people and everything, but I also know that all this wonderful support has also been given with a wider goal in mind. We are all interested in contributing to a larger public conversation about crafting better relationships between formerly incarcerated people and society at large. We live in a world that balances precariously between narrow-minded revenge fantasies on the one hand and generous attempts to consider healing and healthier ways to live together on the other. I hope that our experience will help to strengthen that conversation, even though it is very difficult. If I may speak for everyone here, we call on the Board of Trustees, and the reason we're here is because up there in that building somewhere is the office of the Board of Trustees. So that's actually why we're right here in front of the bus today. So if I may speak for everyone here, we call on the Board of Trustees to resolve the matter of reinstating James Kilgore positively this week and not to push it. Another meeting in yet another month in what is going to turn out to be yet another year. So we have a few little pieces of paper that are circulating with some email addresses, and you can share them out between you to send an email to the Board of Trustees urging them to do this. The report that my colleagues have referred to is on the Public Eye website. That's publici with a little i.ucinc.org, and also the Inside Higher Ed website. My husband struggled to find a new place in the world where he can contribute his writing, teaching, and research skills and his workaholic habits to the cause of a more just society. Has found a good home in Champaign, Urbana. As for myself, as a tenured member of the faculty of this university, I want to thank the good people of Illinois, as I always do publicly in my classes at the end of every semester. As faculty, we are fortunate because we are required to think and to ask questions about power and justice and equality. Thank you for having faith in us and the traditions that value all the universities of this state as places where the boundaries of knowledge are tested rather than confirmed, and as spaces where skepticism rather than authority should flourish. We must find constructive ways to point out when the university falls short of these fundamental commitments, as we have with James Kilgore, Stephen Salida, and with the foot dragging on negotiations with non-tenure track faculty, the GEO, and SEIU. When the university does live up to its ideas of fairness and excellence in relation to its workers, its students, and to the wider public and the very diverse public that it serves, then we will say good job and hallelujah. We are not upholding our responsibilities to the people of Illinois if we settle for anything less from ourselves or from our institution.
Amen.
Thank you. Today, so thank you all very much for coming out, and please send emails to the Board of Trustees, and the struggle continues. And in South Africa, you know, they always end with a with a loud noise. So we'll end with a loud noise. Amandla, that's what I say. It means power, and then we get to learn a word of Zulu today. Okay. Ngawetu means to the people or to people. So I say Amandla, and you say Ngawetu. Okay, you ready? Yes. You ready?
Yes.
Take a deep breath. Okay. Amandla.
Ngawetu.
Amandla.
Ngawetu.